Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. This month, we have something special that we're doing that we have not done before. And it is a special three-part series with my guest this month, Sean Dustin, who is the host of Nowhere to Go But Up. I decided to create a three-part series because during our interview together, his story was so moving and touching. I did not feel that I could edit it down to a 1 hour session. So I want everyone to know that this will just have natural breaks and the story will continue for 3 consecutive weeks. Thank you and enjoy.
Okay, so your girlfriend, I guess, is pregnant with your child. This is your first child, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so we get there, and like I said, I had a crew back in Cali, right? Guys that I hung with, and
Mm-hmm.
they were most of them were with entertainers as well. I guess I'll call them strippers. That's a such a horrible way to describe somebody.
It is, and yet this was your world, right? This was the
Mhm.
language that was used then. And yes,
That's just how I
that's
felt
exactly,
about them.
exactly. Right,
That's all they were to me.
right.
And it was, I would say this, and not all dancers are like that, right? There are a whole bunch that just go in there, they handle their business, they make their money, go home, and they're doing it for a reason, right? They're either looking for a house or whatever it is. But there are the ones that are screwed up just like me, and I could find them very easily. And so when I would go out, I would always go when I was going to a club, my friends would ask me, like, hey, where are we going? What are we doing? I said, going trolling, my friend. Like, trolling. I said, yeah, trolling for chicks with low self-esteem. Let's go. And that made me a predator.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And what I mean by that, going back to this, I see it as this big, huge black ball of pain
Mm-hmm.
because you also had no self-esteem. You know,
Mm-mm.
in the spiritual world, we call it, we draw to us whoever matches our frequency, right? And this is the frequency that you are operating from. And it is a deeply wounded place. So, because you use the word screwed up, I think of, I still see the little boy in pain at 8 years old, right? But now you're just an
Mm-hmm.
adult form. So
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
so yes, now you're calling yourself a predator. I'm saying you've got a person here that has no self-worth or self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
and you are going to find people that match that same energetic frequency. Anyways,
Yeah.
continue.
And you're absolutely right, because nothing that I'm displaying or anything that I'm doing would even remotely suggest that I cared about myself in any way whatsoever. So obviously, how I feel about me informs how I'm going to feel about other people and in my respect level for others. And there was none. And so it's just continued. It continued. It continued. And so one of these guys moved to Vegas, and I had moved him out of his house with his girlfriend before, like the same way that somebody, my past girlfriend moved out on me, right? She went to work in Vegas, and when she came home, all we had moved everything out of the house that was his. And he ended up getting back with her, and they moved to Vegas. And I hook up with him. I didn't realize that he was there, and I run across somebody, or somehow somebody knows, and I think maybe my girlfriend ran across him or something, and he ends up back in the picture again. We do the same thing, and he was one of those bromances, right? And we do the same thing. We move his ass out of there and back into my house now. And so my chick's pregnant, and Leo is now living there with his dog and our dog. And me and him are palling around all the time, hanging out and kind of isolate. You know what I mean? It's like I'm like, not even really paying attention to her, really. And it gets into, we go out, party, don't come home. The one story that really stands out to me around this time is I'm not answering my phone. We're partying out all night. And I end up at the strip club where she used to work at. And we're sitting there just partying, having a good old time. And I guess one of her friends recognized me and she's like, "Hey, why is your dude sitting here at the club with, these two chicks hanging out with him?" And she's small, right? She's little, she's tiny. And this chick comes in and I see her like beeline right towards me, grab me by my shirt, rip me out of that chair with a girl on my lap, push the girl down, and she's pregnant. And like, so I still probably tried to lie my way out of it. caught dead to rights, right? So needless to say, Leo ends up moving out. Me and her end up breaking up after she has a kid. I show up when she's in labor, right? I show up to the room, right?
Hospital, yeah.
Yeah, the hospital room. At this point, I'm doing GHB. Do you know what that is? It's like one of the date rape drugs. And you can, it started out with like people in like the health profession, right? Bodybuilders and stuff would take it.
Yeah.
And so when you build up a tolerance to it, it kind of sometimes has a reverse effect. And so like with anything else, I take enough of it to build up a tolerance. And when I show up at the hospital, I shit you not, I'm like Johnny Depp in Blow. Remember that scene where he's like,
yes,
I'm nodding out. I can't stand up. I can't stay straight. The doctors are like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? The neighbor is there. So the neighbor is a single guy. And there's always that guy who's going to be the shoulder for a woman to cry on, that maybe there'll be a hope that there's a chance for me to be there. He's one of those guys. And so I show up at this thing and I'm just a mess, right? A mess. I don't even know if I clipped the umbilical cord. I don't even remember, right? I may have attempted to, but who knows? And so that was how I was introduced to my first daughter.
So now you're a father. And how old are you at this point? 23,
maybe like
22?
23, 24, something like that. I don't know. And so that lasts for, like I said, and that lasts for a little while. We attempt to move somewhere else. And it's like, we're playing at stuff, right? She's in the mode of mom mode, you know what I mean? I got this kid and I'm in the mode of like, I don't even have any attachment to this child because of how it started out, right? The whole thing that's supposed to happen never happened. I didn't hold her. I didn't bond with her. I didn't do anything. So it was like this fucking annoyance that I have now, right? And I end up moving out, and just because I'm getting aggressive and violent because I don't want to be there. There was a like, I didn't hit her or anything, but I was always bully, I would say, imposing, right? Just anything.
Well, and you said you're a large human being, so you don't have to do anything to be threatening.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I would use that, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so it had happened before, and now there's a child, and there was a saying once that I heard, and there's nothing worse than the anger of a man that's stayed but already left.
That's really powerful.
And that's exactly what it was. And I've done that throughout every relationship because I've never committed.
Now, and you're there in body only, and
Yeah.
and then you're pissed that you're there because you don't want to be there and you're not really there anyway.
But who am I pissed at? Am I pissed at them? I'm pissed at me because I can't seem to make the right decisions. Even though I'm trying, I can't seem to put the pieces together to be something that somebody could fucking be proud of. You know what I mean?
That you could be proud of.
Well, whoever could be. At this point, it like I'm not even a factor. I'm just this thing, right?
I get it.
Mm-hmm. I felt like a long time that I was, and this happened in this house in Sacramento, that I was possessed. And I felt like that for a long time because I didn't feel like I was in control of a lot of the decisions I was making. Right.
But isn't that really at the heart of addiction, that whether you're using or not using, if you haven't dealt with what underlies the addiction, it is what takes control. And it's interesting that you call it being possessed, because I think addiction absolutely is. It does possess. It takes over your psyche. It takes over your body, your behavior, your thoughts.
Yeah. And so that happened. So we ended, and when my buddy moved, he got a 2-bedroom because he knew that I was going to be shortly following, right? He already knew that. And he put that in my head. So I already knew that. And so I'm like pissed because I don't want to be the one to walk away and be the piece of shit. So let me just be a piece of shit in a different way and force you to kick me out. That way I can just say, I don't know, I'm a victim now, right? Setting up the scenario for the future thing. I was really good at doing that. You know what I mean? For deniability, whatever it is. And so I ended up moving in with him. We still try to, you know what I mean? I have a kid, so I still have responsibilities. So she would bring her over usually when it was convenient for her. And, you know, that didn't last for very long. So here's what sealed the deal there. And this is important because of what happens later. They go back to home, which is the Bay Area, to see their family for Christmas. I drop her off at the airport and she says, hey, can you keep my Pathfinder and just, you know, don't drive it. You have your own car, but can you just, I don't want to pay for I don't have the money to pay for whatever. And so I'm like, all right. And I think she told me that she didn't have insurance on it, but I don't remember if she did or not. So I drop her off. Christmas Eve comes, and I'm notorious for not being able to sit still. Like, I will go to places by myself. I will go to a nightclub by myself. I'll go to the movies by myself. I'll go to wherever by myself. I'm not afraid of you think, oh, what a loser by himself. You know what I mean? I just don't care. And so I go to this nightclub. I'm taking GHB. And I think I might have it. I don't think I'm drinking. If I do, I have one and I'm walking around with it because I don't want to look like a fool without one. You know, optics are really important, you know, with somebody who's who's an addict. And so I'm there. I see this amazing chick in the distance dancing by herself, right? And just a silhouette cowboy hat. I remember the whole thing. It was like I was mesmerized by this woman. And I don't meet her. I leave. I get my car. I get in. I'm driving. I might have taken a cap before I started driving, like cap of GHB, right? The last thing I remember is turning off Flamingo, going south on 15. I go down Flamingo South, and I don't remember anything else after that. The next thing I remember is coming to, and I had hit a telephone pole almost at, well, actually it was right before the intersection of Boulder Highway and Flamingo. Any more to the left, like 2 feet to the left or 2 feet to the right, I would have went straight through and went right into a liquor store. So it saved my ass, to be honest with you, for being sued and for the damages. But it totaled the car, the truck. It literally put a taco right down the center of it.
What happened?
I don't know how I even got out of it.
So you never went, like, you came out of that unscathed?
Yeah, I jumped right out of it. I jumped out of the car. You know, here's the funny thing. Right across is the 7-Eleven. All right. I jump out, go to 7-Eleven as if nothing happened. Like the lady who just witnessed this whole thing is looking at me like, what am I looking at? And I go get a Gatorade. I'm pay for it. She takes my money, but she's just like staring at me in disbelief. And I'm like oblivious, right? Like I know what's happening, but I'm like just oblivious to it because I'm like, I need another cap. It's in the back seat. So I go and I take another cap and put it in the back seat. I black out again. And this time I come to, I'm standing in front of a drive-through menu. Like, I don't know, maybe a block down the street. I walked there. I don't know how I got there. I'm like, oh shit, like trying to get my bearings, like, where am I at? You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh yeah, all right, car, there's a car. I got here in a car. And so I'm like, I'm walking around looking and I recognize, I'm like, oh, okay, there's the car and it's going up on a flatbed. So I run over there and I'm like, hey, I'm here. It's mine. You want to know what I do? Yes. I stop him from what he's doing. I say, I need something. I go and I grab it. I take another cap again. blackout again. This time when I come to, I'm in the store that I almost hit. I'm standing in front of the pornographic rack, just like nodding off. And the next thing I remember is the cops coming in. They think I have a head trauma because of what's happening, right?
Because of the accident, right?
Yeah, that I'm like
And
I'm
no, but did they know about the accident, or they're
yes,
just
yeah, they
okay,
know that I
okay.
was the one that
So
was in
now
the
they
accident,
right, okay. So now
and
they
I'm
think
wandering
right,
around
right, right.
like nodding in and out. So they think I got a head trauma. They lead me to the ambulance, and I come to enough to realize that I'm being led into something. And so I start tensing up and like fighting them. And they get me in there and they calm me down. And the guy, and as soon as they leave, the guys go, the guy in the ambulance, he's like, dude, cut the bullshit. What are you on? He's like, I can't help you until you tell me what you're on. Because if I give you something that
It could
interacts
kill
with that,
you.
I could kill
Right.
you. And that made sense to me. I'm like, oh, okay. So I did and just rattle it off. Like, okay, this is what I did. And he's like, okay. And so they ended up giving me anything. They're like, this will just wear off. And I get to the hospital, I check in, and then immediately just leave. And that cost me $98 ticket for the light.
It's unbelievable.
So, needless to say, that relationship ended. She no longer wants nothing to do with me. I moved down. I don't know. I don't move there yet. I end up some time goes by from this happening, right? I end up getting a DUI because I was hanging out at her strip club. So have you ever heard of like head traumas and this type of behavior?
I used to actually work in a brain injury unit.
Okay, so
That's
I've
why I
had
was thinking when you were like, oh, they thought I had a head trauma because yeah.
I have had head traumas though when I was a kid. I got in an accident riding a bike where I went speeding down the hill to jump, and then it just boom, and then hit my head on the concrete. And I've been knocked out a couple times too as a kid after that, playing football and then also playing boxing with a friend. I had a Samoan friend who I should never have been boxing with. He knocked the shit out of me. But this is so as I'm listening to Joe Rogan and him talk about, the Rosie O'Donnell and like all these Sam Kinison, all these folks that had head traumas, and I'm thinking about my own behavior and their behavior,
Hmm.
and I'm going, holy shit. I
That's
wonder
that's where
if
I was
all of
going. Yeah.
this was just like
Led back
because
to a
of
head
that.
trauma. Hmm.
So I end up, I get arrested, right? So I'm driving down the street, leave this place. I feel fine, but I smoked some weed and I drank like a pitcher of beer. And I leave. And as I guess this from the police report that I read, because I don't remember, the police report said that I was driving with my head on my chest when the cop pulled up beside me and looked at me and woo. And apparently I looked at him and I goes, hi, hey. And then I pull over. I couldn't get out of the car. I couldn't get myself out of the car. That's how drunk I was. I think I was like a 0.28. I blew. And that was after they got me to where I was, maybe an hour and a half, because there was a struggle that ensued. So here was the story. The story is that I resisted arrest and I tried to headbutt the officer. I couldn't stand up. Two officers were holding me up, and I kept,
So there's no way you could have headbutted them.
nope. They tried to use the fact that I was nodding out like I tried to headbutt him. So they ensued to beat the shit out of me, knocked me unconscious. All right. I wake up in the back of the cop car at the place, right? And I'm like, I feel like I just got in an accident. Like I got like hit by a Mack truck. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, did I get in a wreck? Like with my truck? But I remember before they took me off my feet, I looked back and my truck was fine. I remember that. And so I'm like, dude, they beat me up. And I'm still drunk, right? And angry. And I have a problem when I drink and I get angry. And I so when I get in there, it's something I know that I've been violated in some way, with shape, or form, right? So I'm pissed. I'm throwing my shoes at these guys, the intake people. I'm throwing my jewelry at them. They don't have me cuffed for some reason, right? And one of the officers comes by and I go to strike him. And they dump me again right? And the only thing that kept my head from splitting was we were in a portable that has the give and the, it's not concrete, it's like wood or something. I wake up this time and I'm in an ICU, and they're checking to make sure there's no brain injury because they dumped me hard. I'm still drunk. I'm in there talking shit to the guy that's watching me. And like, I'm angry, dude. I'm so pissed because it's like, dude, you guys are just beating the shit out of me for nothing. And I just keep going, you're talking shit to him. He gets up and he walks over to me and just takes this part of me and just fuck wham right in my throat. Didn't stop me. I'm like, oh, fuck, you know what I mean? It's like, I was on one. So that ends. I end up in a cell or dorm, whatever the hell it is, once they get me out of that. Like 2 days later, I'm bruised. Like I look like they took the baton and like they tried to break my arm. Like I've got like bruises all over me, like I was beat with this baton, right? My face is fucked up. I look like I just got into a huge wreck. Like 2 days later, the intake officer that I tried to hit, he came down to get me and he pulled me aside and he said, he's like, man, you don't know me. He's on, I don't know you. I've never in my life.
It's okay. Oh, it's okay, Sean. He offered you love or a gift or something, didn't he? Something.
He said, never in my life seen someone as angry as you. It's like you're gonna kill somebody. So you're gonna kill somebody or yourself. You need to figure out what's wrong, and you shouldn't be drinking. And that was it. But what he didn't understand is I was trying to kill myself.
Right.
I just didn't have the balls to do it.
Well, you were doing it. You were just taking the slow road.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't. I mean, I was too selfish to just do it, right? I wanted to have fun while I'm doing it. If I died as a consequence of my behavior, I didn't care.
Right.
So, I mean, I wasn't trying to, but I mean, I wasn't doing anything to deter it either.
It was self-injurious behavior for it goes
So
back.
anyway,
It goes right. It goes back to there's just no self-worth. There's nothing worth saving. You are
and
existing.
I keep reinforcing that through other things that I do that keep multiplying and compounding the problem even more. You know what I mean? Because it's not like I'm a kid anymore. The problems that I'm creating have dire consequences now, and they just keep stacking up and compounding. And like once you get into that, I mean, it's almost like credit card debt. You know what I mean? And it's like, holy shit. All I wanted to do was just do a balance transfer and maybe try to knock it down. But then it's like, oh, I wasn't responsible with that. Now there's the compound interest, and this 6,000 is now costing me $400 a month. And so like behaviors do the same thing, and actions, they compound like that, especially if you're doing the wrong thing and you keep triggering other stuff to get you in more trouble. And so that's what just,
And you eventually land in jail.
yeah, yeah, at some point. And so I did, I got out of that, but while I was in there, I got served with, my ex had petitioned the courts to have my rights terminated, my parental rights. And since I had never had a connection with her anyways, I come up with a whole bunch of excuses as to why this would be the best plan and the best course of action. And I'm not fit to be a father, and I'm going to get out of the paying for her because you voluntarily took away from me and I don't have to pay for her. So, I mean, it was like a win-win situation for me. But what I didn't understand is that something that's so intimately connected to you, whether or not you have a connection with it or not, you're connected to it. And
To your child.
yeah, you're connected to your child, right? That's mine. I know that's mine. I know that that's a responsibility I have in the back of my mind. It's not, it doesn't matter what I'm doing in the moment. In the back of my head, I know what I'm running from. So I decided to move to here we go, moving again. I decided to move to Arizona to take a job because I'd been working as a cable installer. And so, mind you, a lot of this stuff I'm managing to keep a job through, right?
Yes, it's
And
astounding. I mean, I'm trying this, this story is why I mean, I find myself so engrossed in it that I'm not asking a lot of questions because how you're for me, how you're surviving is remarkable, but at the same time that you're, yeah, as you said, you're holding down a job, like your depth of resiliency is remarkable in the story.
well, thanks. It didn't feel remarkable going through it.
I can imagine it didn't, but it is when you look back at it that at some point you did not die. It is remarkable.
No, and there had been, and there so stuff that I'd glossed over. There were overdoses in there, right? I've OD'd like 3 times. I've almost died probably the same amount of times, and somehow it just keep going, right? And so I get served these papers and I make this excuse to why it's okay. I move down to take this job and move away because I think that's what's going to solve this problem. But I hadn't figured out that it doesn't matter how far I'm running because guess what? Oh shit, it's me. You know what I mean? There's no one I'm running from. I'm running from myself and responsibility and growing up because I'm still a kid who's scared and never grew up to begin with, right? Because I was never taught anything. Everything I learned on my own.
What are you learning? What are you learning at this point, right? When you say everything I learned on my own. And I'm just curious in hindsight, what do you suppose you were learning?
I was learning how to just stay surviving. You know what I mean? I wasn't learning anything. Uh, I was treading water.
And running as fast as you could
I was just
away.
swimming in place always. And when I think about it, it's like, dude, my peer group, they're so far ahead, right? And then when I look back and it's like, dude, I'm the quintessential exercise. Raise your hand if this. Oh, well, I can't go. Raise your hand if this. Oh, my hand is constantly raised. And it and it wasn't because I had it wasn't because it was poor. You know what I mean? It wasn't poor. I had things. I lived in nice places. It's just I chose to always get involved in stuff that I don't even know, man. So, anyways,
When do you hit a wall because you end up in prison, right? So you had this addiction to meth for 18 years and you quit in 2010.
and at
And then
this point,
you
I'm not doing it. So I'm not doing it at this point. All
but
right.
you
So
go back to it at some point.
yes.
And then you quit. But then you get into painkillers for 7 years and then you go to jail. Is that correct?
No, I go to prison. So the painkillers is the end. I threw that in there. You know what I mean? I did go to prison. It's right around this time.
Okay.
So this is like the snowball is growing, right?
Yes. Yes.
And it's like, it's compounding. I moved to Arizona, take a job with a company that was up in where I was already working for, but they wanted to open a division in Arizona. So they put us up in a house and had us go down there to try to start off this company. I stayed drunk the whole time because this decision that I made that I think isn't affecting me is killing me. It's killing me that I turned my back on my daughter. And I spent a long time from that point until I get out of. I spent a long time killing myself over that. You know what I mean? And it's just this is where the fall happens, and that's the reason why.
You end up in jail.
Well, I'm stay there. I get kicked out of there because I'm drunk all the time and I'm angry and I'm not happy and I'm projecting bullshit out onto everybody. And I come back home. I guess I ended up I lose that job because I mean, I basically told the dude that was running it to go fuck himself, and so I didn't have a job to come back to. Move in with some of my friends. They're getting ready to leave, so it's just a short stay, right? And like 2 or 3 months at the most, and I got to find another place to live. So I go back to what I know. I go and get a job at a strip club. I hook up with the stripper, right? And so before that happens, I meet her. We're work together, right? I'm working at the club. We just get her number. We're gonna hang out. The first time I meet her, or the first time I come to her place, as I walk in, she's holding a glass pipe in her hand, smoking meth. I'm clean. I haven't done it in 2 years. I'm telling myself, walk away, walk away, walk away, turn around. I just keep walking. I just walk to her, and I blow it. And then I start selling meth to support the habit, right? I end up getting fired from that job because the guy who runs the club can't screw her and I am. So I got to go. So I start selling meth because now I have my habit to pay for, and now I have hers, right? Because soon after that, she's not working there anymore. And so now I'm selling meth full time, and I'm getting deeper and deeper into this game. And I'm trying, and it's not the same as California because I know the players, right? I don't know the players here in Vegas is very different. It's so transient, you know what I mean? And the folks that are actually from Vegas can't stand the people that come from somewhere else. And that's even in the drug little underworld of drug dealing too. They tell on each other all the time. They go to jail and then they end up hanging out with each other afterwards. It's really, really strange. I've never been somewhere where parents are slamming drug, like intravenous drug using with their children. And I like, it's such a strange, really like nothing like I've ever experienced. But I'm still,
so very dark and sad.
yeah,
So dark, right?
yeah.
And going
And
back to that energetic frequency, so that it just pulls you further and further and further down.
yeah. So this is where I discover that I'm ADHD. I start getting, I start employing these guys to go and do smash and grab robberies for me. And they're the guys that are intravenous drug users. I always, so here's the thing with me around this time. I would always hang around with people that I had just a little bit more than, right? Like I still have a car. I still have, you know what I mean? The things that most of them lose, right? And so now they're dependent on me. And so I start employing them to go do things for me, and I would pay them in drugs. And so they would go and they would rob places. I never got in trouble for any of this, so I'm not going to give details, but they would go and they would rob places and they would bring me back everything. I'd pay them in drugs, and I would figure out how to do things, right? Because I couldn't sleep. I would stay up for 3 days at a time, and I would crash for a day, and then I would be right back at it. That's where I figured out that meth and ADHD, because I was like Bradley Cooper in Limitless, right? I was like this thing where I could focus now, right? I could focus on something and I could work on things and not be interrupted. And my mind didn't just go everywhere. And I had all these piles just around me that never got finished. So I learned how to do crime. Like he was bringing back all of these, here's how my mind worked. They were bringing me back all of these computer towers, right? And the hard drives in them, you know, I would wipe them clean. And then I would go to Walmart and go pay cash for a brand new one. I would take that one out. I would put the old one in, and then I would seal them up with the shrink wrap and take the stickers off of them.
And you'd bring it back.
And I'd bring it back. And I do that with all of these. And then I would turn around and sell those computers are now a new computer. And I would sell those. So I'd figure out all of these things and how to do because I couldn't sleep, right? I was washing $1 bills and I was printing the old hundreds on them. And I was, you know, when I got raided, that there was one of those on, that's what I was doing. I was selling drugs heavily. I was hooked up with this one guy. I was selling, you know, selling ounces and whatnot. I was working with this dude for about a year. Had all of these things, right? Like if you went into my pad, I had stacks of any equipment you want, from stereo equipment to everything, because they're stealing all the shit. I had guns, all kinds of guns that were stolen that had serial numbers filed off of them. So all of this is happening, and I'm continuing to do all these things. I'm cheating on my girlfriend at the time with some other person that I've got set up in a place selling drugs for me.
I'm serious. No, you like, I'm sitting here thinking, what would happen if he took all of this energy and put it toward, I mean,
my mom used to always tell me that before any of this even happened. She was like, if you would put, yeah, she's like, if you would spend half as much time just doing what you're supposed to do and do it well, you would be so much further than this whatever it is that you do. Like, what's wrong with you?
It's just, yeah. Anyways.
And so, that ended up happening. And, along the way, I just always find this way of hustling, right? Like I'm a hustler. So fine. So what ended up happening is this guy that I've been dealing with for a year he sends a confidential informant my way. He ends up getting busted. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I never hear about it because we're just associates. You know what I mean? I don't hang out with him personally. So I didn't know that he got in some trouble. And so he sent his CI my way, and I did 5 undercover controlled buys with an undercover cop. Why they didn't arrest me after the first time, which they should have, right? And I found out later why they do this. So they're watching me for like a month. I don't even know it, but I know something is not right, right? It's like, how in Goodfellas, how he got to that point where he's looking up, driving, and my world is closing in, and I feel it, right? I feel like something's coming. I don't know what it is. I get rid of all the guns except for one, because those will give me 5 years each for each one that doesn't have a serial number on it. That's a 5-year charge. I get rid of all those for whatever reason. I don't know. I'm trying to like liquidate stuff and get a lot of the stuff out of there because my house is stacked up with all stolen shit. I'm selling drugs, making fake money, and these guys are watching me. They see me every time I go to my car, put a gun in my band, pull it out. So in their eyes, I'm a dangerous and armed person. So one night, probably around 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I have a friend comes over. My girlfriend and her friend are in our bedroom asleep. I have this huge entertainment center because I have all of these things that I'm getting, and I piece together 32 speakers, and this thing is loud, and I have it on and all the time, and it's always loud. I'm in there and I hear this boom, boom, and I couldn't tell what it was. I'm sitting there with my friend. He's over here. I'm working on $100 bill on the computer. I hear this boom. We're in the back room. I think it's somebody doing a drive-by, or is it cops on the TV? I don't know. I can't tell what it is. I hear it again, but this time louder, like as if it's in the next room. Boom. I tell my friend to get on the ground. I pulled this gun out, this little small one that I still have, like a 25 Derringer. And I go, so just picture a hallway, right? And then to the right is the door, about maybe 15 feet to the right. In front of this door is a huge, remember the projection screen TVs that weighed 1,000 pounds?
Yes. Yep.
6 feet tall. There was one of those in front of that door. So the door couldn't open up all the way. So that means that they couldn't see me, but I could see them as I rounded that corner. The gun is at my ankles, and I'm creeping around, like looking as if, like, you know what I mean? Because I thought somebody was doing a drive-by. I didn't know what it was yet. And because it's smoky too. And I see the shields, and in one motion, I ditch the gun behind the TV because I can't see it, right? And I dive onto the ground with my hands on the back of my head. I got so lucky that night. If they would have even seen, they would have lit me up and I'd have been dead. No questions asked. I mean, that's what they're looking for. That's what they want to do. So I go on that. They pull everybody out. I take the blame for everything. I'm like, hey, it's all me. The girls, they have nothing to do with it. And I had it set up in a way to where I could prove that. So I said, look, I can prove that these people have nothing to do with this. My keys are the only ones that open that door and that door where any of the things that are illegal that you want are at. Anywhere in this house, there's no other drugs. Go look. And they did.
Why did you protect everybody?
Because I don't know. Well, because I one is that not everybody can go to jail because our house will get fleeced. All right. All the drugs that they don't find, or anything that we have there that they don't take, it's going to be a free for all, especially for the people that are working for me that aren't there. Right. And so I set it up to where hopefully somebody will be able to stay and protect everything. And then also too, I don't know, everybody in my life at this point is a hostage to me.
I just find it, the reason I'm asking is because there's integrity there in the midst of this very dark story. I always call it glimpses, right, of who we are. And in that moment, when you could have felt so desperate to save yourself, you took the blame. That's just another glimpse of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I felt like it's me. I did it. You know what I mean?
But you
None of
didn't,
these none of these
but
people were there. They didn't ask to be here. You know what I mean? A lot of them are like my girlfriend. She was trapped. You know what I mean? She was trapped in the world that I created to around this addiction. You know what I mean?
I do, but I'm just saying that I find it's
I
another
get it. I
piece.
hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it would have been a very easy place to start throwing blame, but you didn't. You took it, and that takes courage.
I think because there wasn't anybody to blame.
Yeah.
There was nobody. I mean, I was who can I blame? You know what I mean? That I'm the one that's. I mean, I guess I could have tried to, you know, got some time off for, you know, cooperating, but what does that get you? That just gets you more trouble down the road. You know what I mean? So it's in a lot of ways it was kind of a relief when it happened, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yes.
so what I didn't, sorry, so here's what happened. I didn't get caught with a gun because, so this is a funny part of the story. So I live near Nellis Air Force Base, so there's double pane glass windows. I tinted the inside of the windows, you know, so the outside was that silver stuff that you can't see in. So when they shot one of the flashbangs in the front, so they slugged the back, they shot a flashbang in, or a concussion grenade, whatever it is, through the sliding glass window. The window in the front, because they didn't know we were in the back room. They thought since the TV was on loud that's where we were concentrated at. And so they tried to shoot the flashbang or the concussion grenade through that window. It went through the first pane and then it bounced back on them and blew up on them. Their police dog bit one of the officers in because it got startled. So immediately they were already pissed when they got in there, right? And so because of what I've done already, not even knowing that that's what I did. So I said, "Oh, this is all mine." They proved it. They went and they were thrashing everything. They were just tearing everything apart for no reason. I was like, dude, I'll tell you where everything's at. I mean, you're already here. You know what I mean? It's like you don't need to do all that. And so they didn't listen. And so I started mouthing off. They picked me. I'm zip tied and I'm hog tied, zip tied with on my stomach. They picked me up, two of them, and they ram my head into the TV. It pushes the TV up over the gun. They never find the gun. They don't find any of the drugs.
And
They don't,
the gun would have been a 5 year.
and it would have kept. They would have not given me an OR 3 days later. This is my first felony. Never been in trouble before.
That's which
As an adult.
this is the craziest story I think I've ever heard.
Never been in trouble as an adult, right? So they take me to jail. My girlfriend starts packing the place up and they start cleaning everything up because we gotta move. I don't know anything yet. I don't know what they have taken, what they've gotten, you know, what the police found. I mean, I know there was a lot of drugs there and a lot of cash, and there was none of that in anything that I'd seen. Any kind of like, I hadn't gotten heard of anything. My girlfriend hasn't heard of anything yet either, because she's not saying anything about it. And I'm not trying to talk a whole lot because we're on the jail phone, right? Everything's recorded. So somehow they let me out 3 days later with all of this that just happened. And I'm like, holy shit, what? I'm all right, that's it. I'm not coming. That's it. I'm going on the run. I'm not, catch me if you can. And I had decided at that moment, because of the 5 felonies that I was looking at of trafficking a controlled substance in Nevada, which is the strictest state in wherever, you know, in the union, I was like, no way, I'm not doing. So I decided to go on the run at that point. I go home and nobody could find the gun. The gun disappeared. She had some people helping her move. So I imagine that one of the guys took it, and to find out later, he actually did take it and ended up walking into another raid with that gun on him. So he got the 5 years for it. It serves him right. He shouldn't have stole it. So that happened. And then all the drugs and the money, they never found. and they didn't find it, even with the sniffing dog, because I had it in a TV VCR combo up in the corner, and in the slot for where the VCR goes. That's where I would hide all the drugs, and the TV didn't work. I would just use it as a stash spot. And so they didn't find it. Neither did my girlfriend, because she didn't know where it was either. So all the money and all the drugs, so I could liquidate quick. And we moved everything, the whole operation, to another spot. And because I knew I was going on the run, right? And then I outfitted this spot with cameras, and I made sure that we were in a location where I could see who's coming this way, who's coming this way. And I put a door that they'd have to get through first till they got to this door. So give me time to flush anything or do something, right? I had some time, because I was resigned. Like, this is it, man. Right. I'm on the run. I'm a criminal now, and this is what I'm doing. And so, yeah, I think this would probably be a good place to start, because this next piece is what happens before I end up in prison. I haven't even gone to prison yet, right?
Right.
And there's even more criminality after I get out of prison in 2006. I end up I graduate from doing, they call it hanging paper, which is, making checks and IDs and stuff like that. I learned how to do that because I didn't want to go back into selling drugs, because I'd get another charge for selling drugs. And then that would be
wait, let's back up. Because this is what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if.
Get me to prison?
Yeah. I mean,
like there's 3 books in my story. Like, I've literally like put it together, and there is 3 separate, there's the young years, the formative years, right, of what created this. There's the mess and the monster following that, and then there's after prison.
Yeah, the before, during, and after. And so I'm wondering though here, so now all of this has happened. You didn't go to prison. They let you out 3 days later. What happens next? You set up an operation. You set up a new operation and start doing your selling drugs. How long does this must be when you get busted?
Well, it's right before.
Okay.
So I'm not going to sell drugs anymore. I'm going to continue to do them, because I don't want to get a career criminal charge, right? Because the more times you get in trouble for the same thing, they can line up history. Like, oh, he's a career criminal in this. So I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to graduate myself into white collar crimes. So now because within selling, and what they didn't get, there was a woman that was working for a tour agency in Vegas, right? And I would trade her drugs for stacks. I'm talking stacks of paper, like this thick, of clients that have gone through the tour, or, you know what I mean? Because the paper would have their name, their number, their address, their credit card information, their CCV, everything you need, right? And so I was able to, when I decided to not do this is when it went into overdrive as me, like, working on something to try to make it work in this, like with credit card fraud and stuff, right? So this was the beginning that I kind of knew that this thing was out there. And I can't really talk about this either, because I didn't get in trouble for it. But I took this information that this woman gave me, and I was able to fail a whole bunch of times while I'm doing R&D, right? So I would make it past the next step, right? All right, note that this is what I have to say to get past this point. And so I had all of this information that I could waste trying to figure it out, right? Because I'd stacks of this stuff, I had hundreds of them, maybe even 1,000. And I finally figured it out. And I went and I got like 5 cell phones and somebody else's identity, right? So I have figured out how to steal an identity and get credit cards in the name of somebody else. I know how to make an ID, so I can make IDs now to match that name. I go and rent a car in that name, a Durango, so because I need to be able to work in the back as we're going, from state to state, because I'm taking this show on the road.
Thanks, everyone, for taking the time to listen to Sean's 3-part story. Again, just a reminder this is running 3 consecutive weeks. So make sure that you start from the beginning in with episode 1. Thank you, and see you all next week.